آل محمد. لا حول ولا قوة إلا بالله العلي العظيم. أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. إنا لله وإنا إليه راجعون. رضا بقضائه وتسليما لأمره. السلام عليك يا أبا عبد الله وعلى الأرواح التي حلت بفنائك. عليك مني سلام الله أبدا ما بقيت وبقي الليل والنهار، ولا جعله الله آخر العهد مني لزيارتكم. السلام على الحسين وعلى علي بن الحسين وعلى أولاد الحسين وعلى أصحاب الحسين. صلى الله عليك يا مولاي يا أبا عبد الله. صلى الله عليك يا ابن رسول الله. روحي وأرواح العالمين لك الفداء يا رحمة الله الواسعة ويا باب نجاة الأمة، يا أبرة كل مؤمن ومؤمنة. ما أخاب والله من تمسك بك، وأمن من لجأ إليك. غريب يا مظلوم، يا ليتنا كنا معكم فنفوز فوزا عظيما. أما بعد، Mu'mineen, the day of Ashura has arrived. Since the sun rose in the morning, Imam Hussein alayhi salam has been talking to Umar Asad and the forge of Yazid that, do you know who I am? Do you know that I am the grandson of the Prophet? I am the Hujjah of Allah on this earth. What are you doing here? Why are you trying to kill me? What have I done to you? But it all fell to deaf ears. Time went on. Imam is now giving khutbah after khutbah, but they are not responding. A time comes where Umar ibn Sa'ad says, Hussein, either do bay'ah or we will fight. And then he takes the first arrow and says, O people, bear witness that I am the one who started this war. And the battle starts. The battle starts. Imam Hussein alayhi salam splits the army into three flanks. The center flank is held by Abul Fadl al-Abbas alayhi salam. Habib is one side, Sa'id is on another side, the army is there. Remember, the historians say that the figure from Imam's army was about 72 to 114. And on the other side, there was 30,000 to 100,000. If we take a major figure of 114 here and the least figure of 30,000 or there was 300 for each person of Imam's army to kill them. The battle starts. The battle starts after a little while. For a couple of hours after the battle stops and the dust settles, half of Imam's army is gone. Half of Imam's army is gone. Now comes the time where one by one the battle start. One by one the battle start. Habib ibn Madahir goes. Sa'id go. One after the other go. The battle starts. Then suddenly time comes where it is time for Dhuhr. And one of the ashab looks up and says, Mawla, it is time for Dhuhr. We would like to pray one more time behind you. One more time. So Imam asks for the army of Umar ibn Sa'ad to stop the battle so that they could pray and they could also pray. And the reply comes, Hussein, your salat will not be accepted. Imam Hussein leads Salatul Khawf. Half the army is already gone. Habib stands in front. Sa'id stands in front. They are fielding the arrows while Imam is leading Salatul Khawf. Salatul Khawf is in the uniform that you are already in. And the few warriors that are left with Imam finishes Salat. As soon as he says, Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh, Sa'id falls. Habib runs to him and says, is there any wasiyah you have? But I am following you very soon. He looks at Imam Hussein and says, do not leave him till the last moment. Soon Habib goes. Now there is no ashab left. Now is the time for the family to go. Imam Hussein alayhi salam calls Akbar and says, oh my son Akbar, you represent me. If the Prophet was here, I would be the first one to go. I am in the seat of the Prophet. My son, go, prepare yourself. Go and seek permission from your auntie Zainab who raised you. Akbar comes into the tent. Akbar comes into the tent, seeks permission from them. The ladies cannot believe now that this Shabiha Rasul is now going and we will not see him anymore. Akbar prepares to go. As he comes out of the tent, Imam helps him on the horse, and then he notices that and he says, Bismillah taqaddam bunayya, and Akbar goes. As Akbar is going forward, he senses that somebody is following him. He turns around and he looks and he says, Father, you have allowed me to go. Why are you following me? Imam turns and says, oh my son, if only you knew how it feels for a father to let a son go. Akbar, go forward. Akbar goes forward. He comes back after a while and he says, oh my father, did you see how brave a battle I put up? He says, Marhaba, my son, indeed you are a brave warrior. Imam says, you are a brave warrior. He says, but father, this aslaha is killing me. It is very, very hot here. Is there some possibility of some water that I can get? Imam says, there is no water, my son. Why don't you extend your tongue into my mouth? Maybe you will find some sustenance. Akbar extends his tongue into Imam's mouth and pulls it back and says, Father, your mouth is drier than mine. He says, go, your grandfather will take care of you. Eventually a sound comes. Assalamu alayka ya abata. Assalamu alayka ya ibn Rasulillah. A poet spells it very well in Urdu. He says, Dushman ko bhi khuda na dikhaye pisar ka daag, dil ko figar karta hai lakhte jigar ka daag, aulad noor hota hai नूरे नजर का दाग, ये हाल इब्न फातिमा के दिल से पूछिए. Akbar goes now. Qasim then goes and his body is trampled. Auna Muhammad go and they do not come back. Now there is Abbas and Hussein alayhi salam and nobody else is left. Abbas turns around and says, Mawla, permit me to go. Imam Hussein says, oh Abbas, you are my alamdar. How can I let you go? Abbas looks right, he looks left, and he says, what is the point of an alamdar when there is no army left? Eventually a sound comes and the children are crying, al-atash, al-atash. And Imam Hussein says, oh Abbas, see if you can make some arrangements for Sabil. Abbas alayhi salam goes. He goes towards the Furat. Now bear this, look at this vision, or try and imagine this situation. Sakina has gathered all the children out there, and Imam Hussein is standing outside the tent. Abbas alayhi salam is now heading towards the Furat. The children are looking at the face of Imam Hussein. Imam Hussein is looking at the flag of Abbas. He sees that the flag go down. That means Abbas has reached Furat. He sees the flag come up and he sees a sign of happiness on his face. Sakina is saying, oh children, wait, my uncle is soon coming with water. Your thirst will be quenched. Abbas alayhi salam, now he's coming out of there. Umar ibn Saad says, make sure that this water does not reach. Somebody comes from behind and cuts the right hand of Abbas. The flag starts falling. Abbas holds it with his left hand. Eventually the left hand falls down, is cut, and the flag falls down. Abbas is now still rushing towards the tent. The arrows start flying. As the arrows start flying, they pierce the flask of Abbas, and the eye of Abbas is also hurt. Now Abbas alayhi salam, instead of heading towards the tent, now turns the horse back towards Furat. Eventually he comes down and he calls out, oh Aka, come to my assistance. No brother should see the sight of his brother. Imam reaches there and sees Abbas there, and he calls out, Al-an in kathara dahri wa qillata hilati. Oh brother, your passing away has broken my back. Now comes Imam Hussain alayhi salam, is alone. He calls out, Hal min nasirin yansurna, Hal min mughithin yughithuna. There is no anybody come to my help. He hears the sound of Asghar crying. He takes out Asghar to take some water. Asghar's throat is pierced. Imam buries him there. Now there is absolutely nobody left. Imam now comes out and he calls out, Ya Zainabu, Ya Kulthum, Ya Rabab, Ya Sakaina, Ya Fidda, alaykunna minni salam. O Rabab, O Zainab, O Sakina, O Fidda, alaykunna minni salam. Accept my final salams. Rabab, Imam Hussain alayhi salam comes to Zainab and he says, come with me. They go to the tent of Imam Zainul Abidin, who was very, very sick on the day of Ashura, and Imam wakes him up, and Imam Zainul Abidin looks and says, could not recognize the Imam Hussain alayhi salam, who had so many arrows. And Imam Hussain turns to Imam Zainul Abidin and says, my son, Khuda Hafiz, I am now leaving. He says, Aina Habib ibn Madahir. He says, Qad qutil. Aina Sa'id, Qad qutil. Aina Ali al-Akbar, Qad qutil. Aina Ammi Abbas. Imam Hussain says, my son, don't ask anymore. Amongst the men, there is you and me and nobody else. Imam Zainul Abidin turns to Bibi Zainab and says, help me, get me my sword. Imam says, where are you going, my son? You are the Hujjah of Allah. You have to carry this message forward. Imam Hussain finally gets the permission, wishes Imam Zainul Abidin Khuda Hafiz, and then he heads. Now he heads towards the battlefront. He heads towards the battlefront. And he starts saying, La hawla wa la quwwata illa billahi al-ali al-azim. There is no power or strength except with Allah. And he attacks the right flank. He attacks the left flank. He attacks the center. And the people are running away from him. And Imam keeps on fighting, keeps on fighting. Then he turns towards the Khayma. He turns towards Furat and says, where are you, my warriors? Can't you see the battle that Hussain is fighting? Why don't you come and join me so we can do a good battle up here? But there is no reply. There is no reply. And Imam turns to them and I said, I know if you could come, you would come. Keeps on fighting. After a while time comes where he hears a sound from the heavens. Ya ayyatuhan nafsul mutmainna irji'i ila rabbiki radiyatan mardiya. O tranquil soul, return to your Lord, pleased with him and he pleased with you. When he hears that sound, he puts his Zulfiqar back into his scabbard. Umar ibn Sa'd is watching and he says, the sword has gone back, it is not coming out. Start attacking Hussain. They started throwing arrows, they started throwing spears, they started throwing whatever they could get their hands on. Eventually a time comes, Imam cannot be still on the horse, and he starts coming out in a place called Masaib, which is a small hole in the ground up there, and Imam comes out there, and as he's there, Shimr now approaches. Shimr now approaches, but before Shimr comes, many others come. One comes, try to kill Imam Hussain alayhi salam. Imam is now there, he puts his hand down and looks up him and says, have you said your salat? Have you said your namaz? And this man says, this man can think of salat at this particular time, and he runs away. Finally Shimr comes. I cannot tell you what happened. You can imagine, leave it to your imagination. I don't have the strength to tell you what happens. All of a sudden, the dust starts flying. The dust starts flying. The earth starts taking a tremor. There is an earthquake happening up there. Bibi Zainab rushes down to Imam Zainul Abidin and says, my son, what is happening out there? At the moment time, she is watching from Tilha Zainabiya, and she is watching Shimr come up there. And then when all the land starts shaking and the wind starts blowing and the dust starts blowing, she comes to Imam Zainul Abidin and says, my son, wake up, see what is happening. Imam Zainul Abidin says, lift the flap of the tent, lift the flap of the tent. As he lifts the flap of the tent, he sees the head of Imam Hussain. Assalamu alayka ya Baba. the head of Imam Hussein alayhi salam has been raised on the spear. The munadi is calling out, قَدْ قُتِلَ الْحُسَيْنُ بِكَرْبَلَا قَدْ زُبِحَ الْحُسَيْنُ بِكَرْبَلَا. But the tragedy does not stop there. After the Imam's head is severed and raised up there, Umar ibn Saad calls out and says, get me the best 10 horsemen that you can find. He said, what do you want? And he says, the best 10 horsemen that you can find. He puts the body of Imam Hussein on the wherever he was slain. And he tells the horses, run from here to other, trample the body of Imam Hussein. And the horses can be seen running from right to left and left to right, and you could hear the bones of breaking. Ala lanatullahi ala al-qawm al-dhalimin. وسيعلم الذين ظلموا آل بيت محمد أي منقلب ينقلبون. ماتم حسين يا حسين يا حسين يا حسين يا حسين يا حسين يا حسين.